My Hero Academia, Chapter 235, Shimura Tenko, Origin. So this chapter definitely affected me. I feel like I had more of an emotional response from this chapter than I even did 222, the original chapter with Shigaraki's backstory. And maybe it was easier to digest with me because there was more of a supernatural fictional element to it, you know, with his Quirk killing his family and everything. And while, of course, that is super dark, it's just that this chapter had more realistic elements and tones to it, which, you know, are very prevalent to this day. And I understand that there's like a part of Japanese culture where this is kind of acceptable or something like that. It has to do with like grooming winners, or maybe this was in the past, or maybe it's still current. I don't know. It's just, regardless, I don't like it. I don't condone it. I don't think there's ever an excuse for this kind of behavior, especially in a family environment. I'm not going to lecture on about my views on this stuff. I'm just saying I don't like this, and it definitely affected me, and I hope it's not affecting Horikoshi too much, because I remember reading that just getting through the Chisake arc really affected him, and this is way darker than that because we're actually seeing it rather than just being told. So, yeah. Other than that, let's get into it. So we're opening up this one with the continued confrontation between Re-Destro and Toma, and wow, his form looks so awesome here. And this is like only his 80% stress level form that he has, so you can only imagine like what it's going to look like once he gets to 100%. And unfortunately, we're not going any more into Gigantomachia in this chapter. I was really hoping that we'd see the battle of the big, super powerful Quirk giant dudes, but it's probably going to be in the next chapter, or it's a possibility that they never fight, you know, and Toma just kills Re-Destro before that happens. At least give us a little bit of it, but regardless, we're seeing that, like, the person who is talking to Re-Destro here, I assume it's still Skeptic. He's just completely ignoring Skeptic, and he's going into his own inner monologue about how Toma was able to survive the stress bomb. And we're also finding out that Re-Destro had been honing this technique since he was a child, which is pretty cool because this, like I said in the previous chapter, is friggin' powerful as hell. It's like Re-Destro's version of the Detroit Smash. I mean, and considering this is only 80%, maybe at 100% it even exceeds the power of the Detroit Smash. At least, you know, they nerfed All Might in the beginning of the series. It's also clarifying how Toma was able to survive this freaking crazy attack, because apparently at the last second he was able to grab his hand, or that's what it looks like, he's grabbing his hand. It's kind of difficult to make this panel out, but apparently he grabbed his hand, and I guess this mitigated the damage that he was going to take, so he wasn't completely like vaporized by this thing. So I'm confused as to why this didn't completely take off his arm, because like it's the decay quirk and we see it at least touching his hand. But if you look at the panel at the top of this page, we see Re-Destro's left hand, and it looks like he only has 4 fingers. So does this mean that he took off his pinky, or is his pinky bent in a way that is obstructing our view? Or maybe this is a mistake from Horikoshi. Maybe he meant to draw 5 fingers. Not really sure. I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments, but still a pretty cool sequence nonetheless. And before we go into the flashback that's going to take up the rest of this chapter, we see Re-Destro with like 2 stress bombs in both of his hands. So yeah, whatever happens after this point, I guess Gigantomachia is going to intervene, because like 1, okay, we saw that he could survive that, but 2, it's like he's probably going to need some help here, unless his like ultra instinct kicks in and then he's able to just beast Re-Destro after he comes back from this flashback. I don't know. So let's get into this flashback. So let's just point out this dude at the door. I'm sure you guys were thinking this. Maybe this is all for one, you know, because it's odd that they don't really hone in on this guy and we see him from a distance. And also, if we go back to chapter 222, which I'm going to reference a few times, it looks like he's wearing the same suit that All For One is wearing in that chapter. The only difference is he's wearing a hat and his face is shadowed in a very similar way. And it's just odd, you know, because it's all kind of lining up here. And we all had our suspicions that All For One was playing a part in the ultimate demise of Tomora's family. So it's possible that he somehow picked him up, or he was looking for him and he finally found him. So before I go into all the wild theories that I have about this, let me just talk about Tomora's dad and more about this flashback real quick. And let me also correct what I said in the previous review. Mistakenly, I had said that Tomora's mom was Nana's daughter, and That was a big mistake. Don't worry, guys. I fired the intern who gave me that information. So it's not going to happen again. I'll be sure to do proper due diligence in my future reviews, although I'm sure I'm bound to make mistakes in the future regardless. But anyway, so yeah, this the father is Nana's son, not the mother, and he's just a complete piece of crap because he was abandoned by Nana, and he built this big house so that he can have his in-laws live with him. So that's kind of like showing his psyche, how, you know, since his mother left him, he wants to have like everyone by him, even his wife's parents. So I get it, but there's no excuse for the behavior that he has, and even despite him still knowing that Nana gave him up because she had to, because this was going to happen. Like, what actually happens was just bound to happen, because All for One is just that awful that the only real preventative measure that she had was just giving him away in order to not have him die and lose him completely. It's like, gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. I mean, I know these are supernatural causes and situations, but still, I mean, it kind of relates to the real world, and I guess this is why All Might never had a family, because he can't, you know, because they'd always be at risk. And speaking of All Might, I wonder if he finds out about this, how he would react to it. I mean, we already saw how he reacted when he just found out that Tomura was simply Nana's grandson. And if he finds out all the truth to this, man, I mean, there's not really much he could do about it. Even if he did have his power, like, what's he gonna do? Go into Tartarus and kill All for One? It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like Thor killing Thanos. Like, it doesn't matter. The damage has already been done. Also, another little interesting thing that happens in this flashback is that Tomura's mom says that she doesn't know the reason why Tomura has the allergies that he does. This is the reason why he's always scratching, even to this day in the series. I mean, even when we originally see him. But he also says, Tomura himself, that it only happens when he's at home. So this could possibly mean that it's like stress related, maybe, because we also see the narration towards the end of this chapter when he says the itch sprung out from the depths of my stomach. And this is after his dad is confronting him about seeing the picture of Nana. But before that, he says, you know, the moisture in the air, it pierced his skin like needles. So either it's a result of the weather, or this is kind of showing us that his dad might literally be the result of his allergies. Like, this is a manifestation of his stress and whatnot. And I'm not saying this is concrete. So now let's go into that crazy theory territory that I was talking about. So after Tomura is refreshed about hearing about Nana being a hero and everything, we see him playing with his dog, and then he throws the ball for the dog to go catch it. Then suddenly his hand like gets shocked, and then he looks down at it, and there's like a mark on it towards the center of the hand. We could totally assume that this is when his quirk has manifested, or when his quirk is activated for the first time. And interestingly enough, if we go back to chapter 22, All for One, when he is putting his hand out to Tomura during that chapter, he has a mark in the middle of his hand. So it's not as prominent. I mean, let me say it's more prominent than the mark that we see on Tomura's hand here, but still, marking in the hand is very interesting. And when I first read chapter 222 and I saw that mark on All for One's hand, I thought it was odd, and I wasn't really sure why it was there. Maybe it was just, maybe he was born with that because of his, you know, the quirk, the way that it works and whatnot. Maybe his hole needs to be there. But this mark on his hand could be signifying that he was in fact given the decay quirk by either All for One or Dr. Yujiko. So originally when we see All for One use his quirk to give people quirks and to take them from others, we see him like placing his hands above people's heads, and he's like sucking it out and putting it into another person. So I don't know if it leaves a mark, because it's never explained if it does or not, but maybe All for One like shook hands with Tomura and then transferred the decay quirk to him that way, and the mark that we see is what's left over from his transfer. Or maybe Yujiko did something like an injection or of some kind, maybe something like that, to give Tomura the decay quirk that way, because specifically in chapter 222, Yujiko is like a rare variant quirk manifested within you, one we've never seen before. So maybe he's just saying that to lie to Tomura, and maybe Yujiko using his science, which is totally unexplainable at this point, in mixed with the quirk that All For One has. Maybe he was able to develop a way to give somebody a quirk like synthetically, possibly, and maybe it only works with people who were born without quirks, because that's something that's kind of alluded to in this chapter too. They talk about how Toma, it's like weird that his quirk hasn't manifested yet at his age. So either this has all been orchestrated by All For One, which is totally plausible because, you know, we know that he hates all of the users of One For All, and especially Nana, and he was going after his family intentionally. I mean, this is why this was all started by Nana, to avoid all of this, and unfortunately it just backfired, and it seems like it was inevitable because of how scummy All For One is and how much power he has. It's kind of like Thanos. Let's go back to him. You know how I am inevitable. So either it's all that, or the marking is nothing and his quirk just manifested coincidentally after they had that whole speech. I don't know, but we'll see what happens, of course. So the chapter ends with him unfortunately killing his dog with his quirk unknowingly, and this kind of lines up with the original flashback that we saw in chapter 222. So after Yujiko, like, says you murdered your entire family with your own hands, we see him think back to the dog, and then he thinks back further, and then we see the corpse of the dog after the decay quirk took hold of him, but then we see, like, the father's footsteps above him. It seems like he's running out to the backyard where the chapter 235 is ending right now. And then if we go down further, we see, like, the father's hand seems to be disintegrating, and then we see his sister discovering it, and then we see the grandparents discovering it, and then we see the eye of the father, and then after that we see like a spear or something, some kind of weapon with blood on it. I'm not really sure what this is. Maybe somebody tried to attack Toma or something. I'm not saying it's concrete, it's just difficult for me to make out what we see in this panel of the flashback in chapter 222, but regardless, this is all tying together now, and it's really unfortunate, of course, the origin of Toma here. It sucks, and we're seeing that the motivations that he has, while they are hollow and empty and not really that grand, it's mainly because he's pretty much damaged beyond repair. And his only real motivation left is to just make the entire world the way that he is, which is just destroyed, unfortunately, but that's pretty much it for the review today, guys. Let me know what you thought about this. Let me know all the mistakes I made in the comments. And if you liked it, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.